Gym leaders are supposed to be major obstacles for a player to overcome during their journey. An experienced and knowledgeable trainer that challenges you and your team to see if you're ready for the Pokémon League. While some fit this role very well, many gym leader fights end with the player thinking, It doesn't matter if we're talking about their weaker teams in the beginning, or their so-called challenging ones in the post-game, a lot of the fanbase agrees that the majority of gym leaders in the franchise are underwhelming. That might just be because many of us play these games religiously, but overall I think the point still stands. While many of their teams struggle with incomplete movesets, poor team composition, or just flat out trash taste in Pokemon, I feel like a majority of them fail in accurately representing their respective types. In other words, most of their type-themed teams don't tend to highlight their type very well. Because of this, I've decided to embark on a journey to craft the perfect gym leader for every type in the game. I'll be going type by type to build a full team of 6 with thought-out movesets, abilities, items, and more than anything, an emphasis on representing that type as best as possible. Last time we covered the bug type, and today we'll have a chill time going over another type the fanbase often overlooks: Ice. Despite being the rarest type in the franchise, Ice often gets a bad rep, and to an extent it's easy to see why. Ice is infamous for its defensive prowess, or lack thereof, as it's weak to 4 very prominent offensive types, being Fire, Fighting, Rock, and Steel. Being the 3rd most vulnerable type behind Grass and Rock is already a detriment, but with many popular Ice Pokemon having 4 times weaknesses, over time the type has gained a reputation for being mediocre defensively.
Mediocre?
And this viewpoint is further supported when you remember that Ice's only resistance is itself. This poor defensive positioning will always be the bane of Ice Pokemon, as many people view it as one of the worst types in the game solely based on these matchups. But those people aren't looking at the big picture, because the one thing Ice type does better than anything else is... wait, being defensive? It sounds strange, but it's true. While the type chart paints one picture, base stats paint something completely different. When comparing the average base stats of every type, Ice Pokemon have the 3rd highest HP as well as the 5th highest defense. And despite every other stat ranking lower than this, Ice's sheer statistical bulk carries it to the 5th highest base stat total of all types as well. So ironically, the type people see as a glass cannon is actually a glass... fortress? I was never great at analogies. If we were in any prior generation, representing this defensive aspect of the Ice type might prove a bit challenging. But Gen 9 made an important mechanic change that helps us highlight this pretty easily. Before Scarlet and Violet, the weather associated with Ice was hail, and all it really did was damage non-Ice types for 1/16 of their max HP. It also made Blizzard perfectly accurate and affected abilities like Ice Body and Snow Cloak, but as a whole this weather condition was quickly seen as the worst of the bunch. But as of Gen 9, or technically Legends Arceus, Game Freak replaced hail with snow. Similar to how rock types get a special defense boost from Sandstorm, the newly added snow buffs the defense stat of all Ice Pokemon by 50%. This alone was a massive win for the type, as the weather condition finally did something to assist all Ice Pokemon, not just the ones using Blizzard or utilizing Ice Body or Snow Cloak. And along with a few other moves and abilities Ice types got over the years, building a well-constructed Ice team went from being a joke to being somewhat viable. I say somewhat because any monotype team is bound to have its faults, but honestly, at this point, snow might be the best weather in the game. Although I guess we won't know for sure until we get through the fire, water, and rock videos. That being said, the Ice type is more than just their weather condition. This is something I had to grapple with a lot during team building. It seems appropriate for an Ice Gym leader to center their team around snow, but is it worth excluding Pokemon who are good without the weather? Keep that in mind as we go on, and let me know your thoughts at the end of the video, as your comments will play a part in how I handle future types with weather conditions. And on that note, I think we should jump in. In case you were in a haze and missed your chance to do it earlier, Sub-Zero slam that subscribe button for more Pokemon content. It'd be an Ice thing of you to do, and my dog and I would both appreciate it. Hope all these puns don't get chilly reception. For this team to get off on the right foot, our top priority is picking a Pokemon with Snow Warning, the ability that summons snow the moment they hit the field. While 4 evolutionary lines get the ability, Abomasnow and Vanillix are the only ones who get it naturally and not as a hidden ability, which, if you remember from the bug video, I made it a point not to include. But yeah, I changed my mind. Upon further research, I found multiple instances of a gym leader having a Pokemon with a hidden ability, both in the main story and in the post-game. Plus, in hindsight, it feels silly to draw the line for these ultimate teams at hidden abilities. So on that note, the first Pokemon for the team is the Fox Pokemon, Alolan Ninetales. While it may seem like I chose this solely to avoid the other options, this Frosty Fox does more than just set the snow. Being the speediest option of the bunch, Alolan Ninetales is in a great position to utilize one of Ice-type's best moves, Aurora Veil. Only working under snow, Aurora Veil essentially sets up both Reflect and Light Screen in a single turn. This move is a big part of making Ice teams that much bulkier, as they not only get the defense boost from snow itself, but then even more bulk from the Veil. And with Ninetales holding the Light Clay, it lasts for a total of 8 turns, which is plenty of time for our upcoming team members to take advantage of it. Icy Rock is also a fine option to increase the duration of snow, but it's better to extend the dual defense buff than it is the singular one. The rest of Alolan Ninetales' set is pretty standard. Blizzard, which is perfectly accurate in the snow, Moonblast, which both rounds out our dual stab and gives us a move for fighting types, and lastly, Dark Pulse, as it gives us a neutral move for both Steel and Fire, the only 2 types to resist our dual stab. Other moves like Nasty Plot or Calm Mind may prove useful, but I honestly think they're unnecessary. Alolan Ninetales isn't an amazing Pokemon stat-wise, and as such, it's not meant to set up and deal damage. Instead, its role is centered on setting up for the team, and it does so beautifully. With 3 of Ice's weaknesses being covered by ground, one Pokemon immediately made its way onto the team. The Twin Tusk Pokemon, Mamoswine. This beefcake is a top tier choice for the team. As I mentioned, its ground typing gives us an answer to Fire, Rock, and Steel types, which along with Moonblast from Ninetales for fighting types, already gives us an answer to all of our weaknesses. But Mamoswine's usefulness doesn't stop there, as it also takes neutral damage from both Rock and Fire. Thanks to Mamoswine having Thick Fat for an ability, Fire-type attacks basically do neutral damage. While Mamoswine could have Snowcloak for an ability, Thick Fat is just too good of an option to pass up. Plus, evasion boosting is obnoxious. Moveset-wise, Mamoswine is fairly standard. Icicle Crash is first, as it's the strongest ice move Mamo can get. Second of course is Earthquake, because duh, it's Mamoswine. Next is Ice Shard, giving our team a much appreciated priority move. Remember, ice types aren't typically the fastest, so anything we can use to pick off a speedy opponent will come in very handy. As for our last move, you could either go with Heavy Slam to take advantage of Mamoswine's heft, or with Trailblaze to boost its speed. Both are good choices, but I'd opt for Trailblaze, as having a move to buff your speed can be very helpful, especially considering Mamoswine's item. While you may think a Choice Band, Life Orb, or even Nevermelt Ice would be the choice, I've gone for something much more diabolical. The Weakness Policy. For those unaware, Weakness Policy increases the user's attack and special attack by 2 stages if they're hit with a super effective move. With Mamoswine's decent natural defenses, along with the defense boost from Snow, and the defense boost from Aurora Veil, Mamoswine is basically guaranteed to live a super effective hit. And if you boost your speed with Trailblaze on the same turn you double your attack, best of luck to anyone in your way. The next obvious pick for this team is a Pokemon with the classic pairing, Ice and Water. It not only gives us an easy answer to Fire, but also helps with Steel types on the defensive end, as it's the only weakness both Ninetales and Mamoswine share. Pretty quickly I was down to 2 choices, the first of which was Walrein. This thing probably wasn't on your radar, but it's actually a really solid option for the team. Its stats are well-rounded, making it a really bulky team member, especially if Snow or Veil are still active. In addition, it gets Ice Body for an ability, which acts like built-in leftovers in the snow, as well as also getting Thick Fat, which actually makes Walrein resist fire. And with a fairly diverse move pool to boot, this could easily be our third pick. But after careful consideration, I ended up going with my second choice, the transport Pokemon, Lapras. While a few of you may think this is a biased pick because Lapras is one of my favorite mons, I promise there's a good reason for it. Lapras' stat spread is actually quite similar to Walrein, with the main difference being Lapras' higher HP and Walrein's higher special attack. Lapras' ability Water Absorb is also great for the team. Water types may not seem like a threat to us, but as one of the types that resists ice, we need to make sure they can't sit in front of us and spam Surf. But that said, Walrein's abilities were just as good, if not better. So what is it that pushes Lapras over the edge? The answer, 2 moves. The first of which, and the most important one, is Freeze Dry. One of the type's most unique moves, Freeze Dry is an ice attack that hits water types for super effective damage. And as I mentioned a second ago, we don't want water types to sit in front of us, and this helps combat that. The second move Lapras gets over Walrein is Snowscape, which sets up the snow again. It's reasonable that Ninetales' snow warning would have faded by now, and while it may not be essential to set it up again, I think it's better to have the option to. Especially because Lapras can afford the move slot. Between Freeze Dry and our third move, Surf, we hit every Pokemon in the game for neutral or super effective damage. As for the last move, both Psychic and Alluring Voice provide us with extra coverage for fighting types, and they both come with their own helpful side effects as well. For a more defensive option, you could give it Heal Bell or Haze, as truthfully, the last slot is sort of filler. With just the first 3 moves, as well as leftovers for a held item, Lapras adds some much needed bulk to the team, representing how impressively defensive ice types are. I'm sorry, that still doesn't sound right to me. Between both base stats and snow, I've talked a lot about ice type's natural bulk. And while that's a major part of the type, it's also important to note its 6th place ranking in attack. With all the... You'd think ice was more specially offensive, but it turns out many ice types skew to the physical side, like our boy Mamoswine, and also our 4th team member, the woolly crab Pokemon, Crabominable. Before you start throwing virtual tomatoes at this doofus, let's give him the benefit of the doubt. Ice and Fighting is a great offensive combo, hitting half the types for super effective damage. And with an attack stat that outdoes Mamoswine, this boxing crab can punch some holes in the opposition. Literally. No, I mean quite literally, because it has Iron Fist, an ability that powers up punching moves. To be clear, that doesn't mean a power-up punch powers up a bunch, but any one of a bunch of punches powers up a bunch. Good? Good. Crabominable's first move is Ice Hammer. It hits hard and is boosted by Iron Fist. Simple as that. Next up is Drain Punch. While close combat may be more tempting, Drain Punch is better over time, as it'll keep us healthy as opposed to lowering our defenses. Next up is Earthquake, giving us a way to deal with fire types, and last is Thunder Punch, another Iron Fist boosted move that gives us extra coverage. These 4 attacks cover an insane amount of Pokemon, and make it quite likely that Crabominable will have an answer for anything that comes in. As for an item, I'm going with Assault Vest. While either Leftovers or Expert Belt are good substitutes, I think the added bulk from AV is more in line with the bulky offense this team is going for. I know some people won't be a fan of this mon for the team, and I'd wager a lot of that has to do with its design, which, you know, fair. But truth be told, I thought about it for a while, and ultimately Crabominable is just too good to pass up. It hits 3 of our 4 weaknesses for super effective, isn't weak to rock, and even fires its pincers like rockets. No joke, that's in the Pokedex. The biggest downsides of Crabominable are its low speed and its numerous weaknesses. But to be fair, speed is Ice's worst stat, and we all know too well about its fragility in the type chart. That all said, if you really wanted to substitute Crabominable for something else, you could go with one of my honorable mentions, Galarian Darmanitan. With its ability Guerrilla Tactics acting like a built-in choice band, along with it being able to hold a choice band on top of that, this thing does incredible damage with its base 140 attack. And it gets the same ice, fighting, and ground coverage as the crab, while also getting U-turn. There's really nothing wrong with this Pokemon instead, but I decided it was better to opt for something more representative of the type as a whole than it was to go with. While our first 4 team members were fairly easy choices, these last 2 took me the better part of a couple weeks to fully decide on. No joke, there are roughly 10 different Pokemon that almost filled these last 2 slots. Ultimately, I found myself at the crossroad I laid out in the beginning. How much stock do I put into the snow mechanic? For a while I thought I needed another snow warning user, like Vanillux. Then I thought about having a sweeper that doesn't need the weather, like Weavile or Frosmoth. But after a lot, and I mean a lot of consideration, I realized I needed something in the middle. Something that can contribute to the weather cause while also being able to do other things. And the Pokemon I chose for this was the Snowland Pokemon, Frostlass. Aside from being one of the coolest ice Pokemon, pun totally not intended, Frostlass is able to utilize 2 different strategies. The first involves snow. By giving it Snowscape, we can take advantage of its ability Snowcloak. Now you might be thinking, didn't you just say evasion is obnoxious? While not my favorite mechanic, I'd be lying if I said Ice Gym leaders haven't been using this strategy for years. Plus, Snowcloak is a lot different than spamming Double Team. Outside of the snow, Frostlass can use the combination of Thunder Wave and Hex to both cripple its opponent and deal solid damage with Hex jumping to 130 base power. Ghost coverage isn't necessary for this team, but odds are the Pokemon people would bring to this gym wouldn't resist Ghost either. Lastly, while Blizzard may seem perfect to round us out, I'd opt for Ice Beam instead, as it doesn't require weather to be reliable. Again, I'm trying to strike the balance where snow is an option, but not the only strategy in place. That being said, for an item, I think Icy Rock would be the best choice, as our last Pokemon would appreciate a bit of extra time to play in the snow. There was one Pokemon I was dying to put on this team. My most honorable mention, Ice-Q. This blockhead flies under the radar for some, but anybody that's played around with its gimmick knows just how annoying it can be. Its ability Ice Face is pretty complex to explain, and I don't want to waste a ton of time on it here, but if you're unaware, Ice-Q can tank one physical hit for free with its Ice Face, and once it melts, its stats jump from defense-oriented to speed-oriented. There's a lot of other nuance to the way it works, but the bottom line is that Ice-Q can be a pain in the butt if you're not prepared for it. While some of you might be thinking Belly Drum for it, the moveset of Snowscape, Aurora Veil, Flip Turn, and Ice Spinner can be utilized in some ridiculous ways. It would take way too much time to explain how this moveset works in this video, so if anybody wants to take the time in the comments to outline the combo of how setting up the Snow and Veil, Flip Turning out, and regaining your Ice Face all works, I'd greatly appreciate it. While there are a few good choices left for the team, one of which being the pseudo-legendary Baxcalibur, there's one ability I still want to take advantage of, and it's the reason for making sure Frostlass had the move Snowscape. That ability is Slush Rush, doubling a Pokemon's speed in the snow. While Beartic and Alolan Sandslash can use this ability well, I think it's best if our last spot is taken by the newest Slush Rush user, the Terra Whale Pokemon, Satitan. Despite this thing's impressive stature, it's actually the fastest user of Slush Rush in the franchise, while also sporting incredible HP and a solid attack stat. Under snow, this thing can be an absolute menace, both tanking hits and dishing out tons of damage, especially with one of the strongest setup moves in hand, Belly Drum, where the user cuts their HP in half to max out their attack. With Satitan's massive HP stat, along with the defense boost from snow, and even a Citrus Berry equipped, this behemoth is primed to take full advantage of Belly Drum, similar to how Mamoswine takes advantage of Weakness Policy. And with one turn of setup, this thing can stare down its foes with max attack, boosted defense, double speed, and still have the majority of its HP. Talk about an ace Pokemon. As for its other moves, Satitan would run Ice Spinner, an accurate and strong ice attack, Earthquake for coverage on fire and steel types, and either Play Rough for extra coverage, or Ice Shard, just in case the snow runs out before Satitan can clear the team. While this moveset is a great way to finish up, my reason for picking Satitan as the ace is a little deeper than just moves. The recent change from Hail to Snow seems to mark a turning point for the Ice type. It's almost like Game Freak wants the fanbase to rethink the way they view the Ice type as a whole. Instead of these fragile and offensive Pokemon from generations prior, the emphasis is more on bulky offense, which can be seen through both the newer Ice types and Ice type moves. Honestly, it's always been a bit of a weird type in the franchise. It went from being seen as the Dragon Killer, to the Glass Cannon, to the defensive Laughingstock, to now the defensive Powerhouse. I don't know if I'll ever get used to that. Bottom line, each type in the game has more to it than you may realize at first glance. So just remember, don't judge a book by its cover. Don't judge a type by its weaknesses? I told you I wasn't good at analogies. And there you go, my perfect Ice type team. I wouldn't be shocked if I finished this series and Ice was still one of the types I considered the hardest. There are just so many great Pokemon to choose from, so be sure to let me know what would be on your Ice team in the comments. And don't forget to think about that question from the beginning as you're telling me. But anyways, thanks so much for watching. Be sure to click a couple of those buttons down below, and as thanks for making it to the end of the video, here's a picture of my dog. Talk to y'all soon.